right. We're here. The lighting isn't great. Let me just go turn the light on just in case. I'll grab my iPad as well. I'll give a minute for people to come. Okay, hello. It's a little bit higher than, and I have it set up higher than I normally do. So I've got it almost down on my tippy toes to see. But if you've got any questions at all, just pop them in the box at the bottom. And then I'll answer them as they come in, unless we'll talk about it later. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm not going to talk about it twice, basically. All right, here we go. This is the prep video for the Fun in the Tub Stitchalong. It's going to be so fun. Just a couple things before we start. Ew, there's a fly in here. Don't land on my fabric. That's gross. For some of you, this might be your very first stitch along, and that's completely fine. We're going to go over every single little thing. And for others, it might be like your 20th stitch along. And I think we've probably done even more than that. So don't worry if it's your very first one or if it's your 10th one or your second one. It doesn't matter. Just do your own best, and you don't have to compare to anyone else or anything like that. Try not to, because we're all doing it together. That's the point of stitching along together, is so that you're not doing it by yourself. Even though you're sat at home, maybe by yourself, you still got a bunch of other people who are stitching with you. So that's the fun part. The second thing is, if you can, take a little picture of what you stitched and put it in your stories. Tag me at the Barmy Fox, and then use the hashtag the Barmy Fox SAL. That's SAL. And that way we can see everyone's stuff, and also I can repost it in my own stories so that you can get a bunch of compliments and likes and stuff from that too. So hopefully that's clear. It's also in the actual pattern, in the PDF pattern. So if you've already bought your pattern, you should have all this information in there already, as well as all of the materials. I'm just going to kind of go over the materials, and I'm going to show you how to trace your pattern that you've printed out, or if you haven't got a printer, I'll show you how you can trace it without printing from your computer or your iPad. Anything else? I think that's pretty much it. My printer is actually broken, so I'm gonna try and fix it after Miles is asleep in the evening. Gotta like replace a waist toner box or something like that. I don't know. But I'm just going to go all the way through all this stuff real quick. And then, yeah, if you got any questions, then obviously I'll answer them. I'm also going to do a different live about watercoloring your fabric, if you'd like to do that. So I know I put in there a couple different options. So I said you could probably watercolor the background if you want to, and then stitch on top of that. Or you can put a whole nother piece of fabric over the top and applique it. Around here, you could put a piece of fabric over the bottom and applique it. You can do none of that and just stitch on a colored piece of fabric. You can fill the bottom half completely with stitches and leave the top half open, like the color of fabric, and then whatever colors you choose for your stitches. There's lots of different options here. So I'll go through all of the kind of different options for that in a different video, because I can only save 1 hour. Like I can only save it off the internet, you know what I mean? Off Instagram. So if the video goes over an hour, I can't put it on YouTube or anything because it won't let me save it. So I'm just going to go over the materials, and then we'll do a separate live, at the weekend, going over this kind of stuff. And that way we don't have to be rushed, you know? Okay, so the first thing is needles. So this is the DMC 1 to 5 pack. I always recommend getting one of these because you have the small needles here, the medium ones, and then you also have the big long ones. And I've actually given both of them away, so you can't see how big they are, but they're about this big, I think. Yeah, they're about that big. So we'll easily do 6 strands, 3 strands, 2 or 1 strand. I always say try and match the number of strands to the thickness of the shaft of your needle. And I always go over this at the very beginning of the stitch-alongs anyways, but what happens is when you are stitching, and say you would like 6 strands, and you have a needle that the shaft is not thick enough to accommodate 6 strands, what happens is you get a really tiny hole with your really tiny needle, and then the 6 strands is too thick, and you're trying to put it through your fabric, and it doesn't work. So I always say if you've got 1 strand, use a really thin, smaller needle. And you can see here, these are the ones that I use. So I've got 1 strand here, really tiny, also really small shaft of my needle here. And then I've got a 6 strand all the way to the side. So it's thicker, it will accommodate a thicker needle. And what I mean by that is when you push your hole through your fabric, it leaves little holes. Push your hole through your fabric. When you push the needle through the fabric, it makes a hole. Let's be smart now, okay? So this is obviously a hole for 6 strands. And then if you've got a hole for 1 strand right next to that, so here's the one I just did there. If you've got one right next to it, it makes a smaller hole. And that makes it so that your 1 strand isn't like floating around in that big old hole that you made with your big old needle. So if you can, try and get like a multi-pack like that, like this DMC 1 to 5. You can also get Chanel needles. I know some people really like to use Chanel needles. You can tell the difference between them here. So these ones have a long kind of oval eye like this, a very thick shaft of your needle. And these ones here are more thin from top to bottom. They do flare a little bit at the very end. Hi, George. But not so much, not too bad. And they tend to be a little bit longer as well. So there's kind of the 2 kinds. I know some people just love these and they use them all the time. And I know some people just love these and they use them all the time. It's total personal preference, I'm telling you. I feel like choosing your needle is like choosing a wand, you know, or like it's just something really personal. I feel like you'll know if you've got the right one. And you'll know if you haven't. If you've got trouble with your threads or anything like that, I feel like you just feel it. You just feel like, this is not right. And if you think, you're being ridiculous, just wait. Just wait till you try. And you'll know exactly what I mean. Good evening, Sarah. There we go. I've also got a blunt needle here just in case we do any like weaving or anything like that, but we haven't got any weaving so far in this pattern, so you won't need anything like that. And then this is just an extra, my spare needle. But I use these ones right here the most. These are all antique needles that I got out of an antique sewing box. But again, the 1 to 5 pack is really great. You'll also need some scissors to cut your threads. You can get fancy scissors. You can get kitchen scissors. You can get embroidery scissors. It doesn't really matter. You just need something to snip it. So make sure you have some of those on hand. Let's go through some of the pens real quick because the pens probably one of the most important parts, other than the hoop and the fabric and the thread and the stitches and the needle, is your pen. So I'm just going to go through each one and tell you some pros and cons. There's no right way to use the pen. And you'll know what I mean in just a minute, but there's no right choice, okay? If you've got a pencil, just use the pencil. You don't have to go out and spend like $1 million buying special embroidery pencils or anything like that, because there's no such thing, for one. And 2, a regular old pencil works just as well. So I've got 2 here. You can use a mechanical pencil or like a sharpened pencil. The pro to a pencil is that you've got one kicking about somewhere, so you've already got one. The con is that you can't really erase it. So if you decide to use a pencil, you're going to want to stitch on the other side of your line so that you cover up that pencil mark. Otherwise, you're actually going to see the pencil mark around your pattern. And let me see if I've got one that I haven't erased, because you'll see what I mean. Nope, I erased all of them. Here's one. So this is actually a Pilot friction pen, so it will erase all the way. But do you see on the purple here how there's like an outline around it? Yeah. If you don't stitch on the other side of that to cover that up, what's going to happen is you're going to be left with a pencil mark and you can't erase that. So let's see if this will erase. I actually stitched it a really long time ago. So if you use one of the other methods, do you see now? It's completely gone. And it just looks a little bit more like cleaner and nicer and crisper that way. So if you use a pencil, that's totally fine. There's nothing against that, okay? You'll hear that a lot, totally fine. But just make sure that you try and cover that up by not stitching on the line. Stitch a little bit over the line, if that makes any sense. So there's pencils. Everyone's got them, pros and cons. The other one you can do is the disappearing ink pen. I would not recommend it for this stitch along, but I like to show it anyways. And it's literally just, I'll use it on the edge of this, just a purple marker. And the marks disappear just in the air. So you don't have to do anything to it. They'll just evaporate and disappear on their own. So obviously, if we're going to work on this for 2 weeks, probably more, you don't want this one because you're going to have to redraw it like every day. But it is really great if you want to do any kind of like guidelines or draw on your pattern in that kind of way. Meaning like if you wanted to draw your stitch guidelines inside your pattern, that's always great. But probably not great for this one. The other one you can do is the water erasable pen. So this is the Keyring water erasable pen. I'll use the edge here again. Oh, I thought it like literally disappeared in that little amount of time. I just have the wrong one. So this one is a little bit thicker of a line. And you do have to get your entire project wet to get rid of it. And what I mean by entire project is like, say you've just got this little bit here that you want to erase. If you just get this wet, you'll get like a little watermark around the outside of where you didn't put water because it just kind of pushes the ink out. You really have to saturate your entire project with water to get rid of the water erasable pen. Saying that, they work really well. You just have to get them wet. So again, pros and cons to each one. They're quite cheap as well. I think they're like $1.99 or maybe £1. Let me just let Jessie in real quick because she's just gonna keep knocking. Come on. There we go. So there's that one. So far we've done 3. I've got 2 options here for if you have dark fabric and perhaps a pencil or like a black friction pen won't work. And they are the water soluble marking pencil. It's obviously white for dark fabric. And then we also have the Jelly Roll gel pen. So this is just like a stationary pen that you get like in a stationery shop, and it's just the Jelly Roll white gel pen. This doesn't erase, this one does. So this one will erase, or sorry, this one will not erase. So just like the pencil, you've got to stitch over the line to kind of cover that up. But this one here, you just get it wet and it will come off. So that's always good. It's good to have an option though, if you want to have like a darker color, which like a dark blue might look really nice. This is my favorite option, and I've got a bunch of them, like a ton, an absolute ton. So there's a couple different ones here. They're all essentially the same. They're all a little bit different. So this one is the Friction Clicker. It's just a pen that clicks. It doesn't have a cap. It just clicks. And this one has a 0.05 tip on it. So it's actually really thin. The marks, I think it's actually dead. I don't think there's any more. They also make refills for this. So if you didn't know that, now you know. You just take them apart and you can put a new refill in. So that's good. Good to know. Save the planet and all that jazz. Okay, I can't show you that one because there's nothing in there. But this is exactly the same one, but it's a 7. So it says, see, 0.7. So I suppose that's 0.5 as well. and it makes just a little bit thicker mark. And then this is exactly the same, except it's 10. So obviously a little bit thicker. They all work exactly in the same kind of way. They come off with heat. So you can use an iron, or you can use, my favorite is the hair dryer. Now the other thing with these is that they do kind of leave like a ghost line, meaning you'll see in a minute. I might not have left it on long enough, to be fair. But they do kind of leave a ghost line. Let's see if you can see what I mean. Only in some lights. Can you see that there's the first 3 lines I made right there? And then the second 2, there's a line right there. Now I've found that because I stitch kind of on/over the line, it kind of covers it up anyways. But if you've got a little bit peeking through, like you saw on the purple flower, it will erase all the way. Now that doesn't mean that you can just willy-nilly like draw all over it and just like go hog wild. Like obviously try and make your one line and make it like, this is the line I want to do. So take your time tracing, because if you trace it wonky, you're going to stitch it wonky. You know you will. I always do as well. But you do get these little like ghost lines. Now I found if you get them a little bit wet, just a very little bit wet, then they disappear. So that happens. The other thing is that if you put them in the freezer, or if you are stitching somewhere super cold, people have said that the lines can come back. Now, I haven't found that, and I've been shipping my embroideries like everywhere. And I haven't found that the lines have come back in shipping. But some people have said that they have. Like other embroidery artists have said that they've seen them come back, if you know what I mean. And if you put it in the freezer, it will come back. So don't put your artwork in the freezer. Like don't go snowboarding with it or something. But I've never found a problem with it, so you should be fine. These are my favorite ones though. There's also a new one called the Fine Liner. I don't actually see like a number on these, but they have a different kind of tip. So if you look at these ones, hi Sylvia, they have a different, it's almost like a marker tip instead of like a ballpoint pen. But I found that they actually write and draw in the same kind of way. So hi Hannah. So it's just whatever, toot your horn, you know, whatever you like. I tend to use whatever I've got. So I'm not too picky on like which one I pick. I just grab one. You can find them at Sainsbury's, these, if you're in the UK. WH Smith has them. I'm sure places like Tesco have them as well. Maybe even Asda, I'm not sure. In America, Target has them. Amazon has them. Obviously, Amazon has them in the UK as well. But just see what you can find if you're really interested in these. Personally, I love them, but that's just me. So if you've got any questions about pens or anything like that, do let me know. I will say if you are going to go for the friction pens, I would stay away from colors like red, because they tend to leave a darker, almost yellower line if you've left them on for quite a long time. So I'd stay away from the red color, but all the other colors I haven't had a problem with. I tend to go for black, purple, green, blue if I've got one. When I go to the States, I'm going to get more of these. I got these ones at Target. Love Target. Okay, that's pretty much it for that. Let me know if I'm going too fast, or if you're like, I don't understand what you're talking about. Just let me know. We're going to talk about hoops next. Just having a drink of water. Okay, all of the hoops kind of work in the same way. For this project, we want an 8-inch hoop, so it's 8 inches from the outside edge to the other outside edge. Obviously, there's 2 rings here, so the size in the middle here, the actual stitchable area, is going to be less than 8 inches. So when you go to print out your pattern, make sure you're printing it at 100%. Sometimes when you go to print a PDF, it will print like a default like 97 or 93 or something like that. If that happens, it's not a big deal. It'll just be a tiny bit smaller. That's all. Whereas this one will fit right almost exactly in the middle. I might have to shave off a little bit, meaning cut off just a little tiny bit. You know what I mean? So it'll fit exactly in the middle of the inside hoop, because obviously you can't stitch through the wood part. So if you're kind of looking at this and going, oh, Tori, you made it too small. It's not, because you actually have this inside hoop there. So the way that these hoops work, I know you probably know this, but some people don't. It's their very first one, so I'm going to explain. You've got your hardware at the top. Sometimes they have two separate pieces here, meaning there's an actual like nut on the other side. Sometimes it's welded to the other hardware. So here it's just one. So you've got these two on each side, and then just this one thing here. Other times, ooh, let's see if I've got one. No, that's a different kind. Oh, here we go. This one has one. So this part right here is actually completely separate, and this part here is completely separate. So I can actually take it apart and have one piece that's connected to the hoop, one little nut, and then one screw like that. So it just depends on how yours is. They come in all different ways. And what you're going to do is twist, loosen, okay, the one, and you're going to take these two apart. Now, what we want to look for when we're getting our hoops, it doesn't necessarily have to do with the hardware because they all tighten the same way. What we want to look for is that they kind of touch all the way around the entire outside edge. So if you find one, I think this one is one, because I had it out from before and didn't use it, which means it's probably a wonky. Let's see. Probably because I've been throwing them in a box. Okay, so do you see how this one here has a gap? What's going to happen is that your fabric is not going to get tight all the way around the outside here. It's only going to get tight around where they touch. So sometimes if I'm having this problem, I will use some like masking tape, or if you've got like athletic tape, that works quite well. You can just tape up that area where it doesn't meet. So you will just use your pencil or your pen, go like this, and then put a little bit of tape in that area, and that will make sure that that fills in that space where it doesn't meet, and makes it a little bit thicker. Or you can bind your entire hoop. Sometimes the hoops are just not salvageable, and sometimes you don't have like a lot of money to be buying like a million kinds of hoops. So what you can do is take an old piece of fabric, or if you've got like a t-shirt or anything like that, or you can just use masking tape, and you're just going to wrap the inside of your hoop all the way around. I didn't cut mine long enough, so I've got tape here and here because I ran out of fabric. And you're just going to wrap it. And that way, when you run your finger around the outside edge, it's going to be tight all the way around. Okay? So don't stress out if you're like, oh my gosh, I've bought one on Amazon, or I've bought one off of a crafting website, and the one that I get, it's not perfect. Do I need to return it? You don't have to return it. You can fix it if you can just, be a little bit MacGyver-y, I guess. But I would highly recommend trying to fix it before you get started stitching, because what's going to happen is every time you get to the edge of that area and you put your stitches close to there, it's going to push your fabric down, and you're going to get a big like gap. It will go down like this there, and it won't be tight. And it's going to affect how it looks in the end. So there's that. You can also get a plastic one. Lots of people really like these plastic ones. I know a lot of people also will stitch in the plastic one, and then they'll transfer it to a wooden one when they're finished. Because the wooden ones look really nice when they're done. But sometimes there can be issues, like I said, with the gapping. So it just depends. If you've got a plastic one, or if you find a plastic one that you quite like, these work exactly the same. They often have a little lip there, if you can see. The light is not so great because it's coming like right through the skylight. But there's a little lip here like that. So it works in exactly the same way. And then you just tighten at the top like that. Okay. So I'm going to talk about fabric, and then I'm going to cut a piece, put it in, and you can see how to do that. And then we're going to talk about transferring. So have you got any questions so far? I know I feel like I'm talking so fast, but I feel feel like there's always so much to get through on this. And like I said, we're going to talk about applique and watercolor in a different video because I feel like I'm already cramming in a lot. So don't want to be too crazy. Okay. This is extra tools that goes over there. All right. So now we're going to talk about fabric. And what I've got here is just a regular white 100% cotton fabric. You can see the weave on it if we get really close. There we go. It's quite a tight weave, but it's just a plain white fabric. Yeah, this one is cotton. You can also pick something like linen or a linen cotton blend. So if you have a look at these next to each other, the linen one is more open. It also has a more like rustic kind of feel to it. It also frays a little bit easier, but that doesn't really matter. But you can tell the difference between them there. This one's much tighter. This one's much more open. So I'll just show you some examples of some finished hoops on each one, and then you can kind of see how it looks. This is a personal preference. It has nothing to do with the outcome of your actual embroidery, meaning like it's not going to make it, one isn't going to make it easier or harder or better or worse. This is completely up to you. Now, regular cotton you can get in America, it's at Joann Fabrics. Normally when you walk through the door at Joann Fabrics, there'll be like a quilting section where you can buy fabric by the yard. Here, I only know of one fabric shop that's close to me, and I don't have an online store. It's Barry's Fabrics in the middle of Birmingham. So I can't really suggest going there because they don't have an online shop. So you have to like, physically go there. But places like 123 Fabrics or something like that, or like fabric.com, they'll have fabric this way as well. It'll be by the meter in the UK, and normally there's like a minimum, so you can get like maybe 20 centimeters or a fourth of a meter or something like that will be the minimum, and then you can buy it like that. Same with Joann Fabrics. There is a minimum. I don't remember what it is. Maybe it's a fourth of a yard or something like that. But at Joann Fabrics, just like waffling on, aren't I? At Joann Fabrics, there's a couple different like levels, if you know what I mean. So there's the Country Classics Quilting Cotton. That's not this brand, but it looks exactly the same. It's just a regular plain colored fabric. I'm pretty sure it's like $4.99 for an entire yard. So that will be like 40 or 60 inches long and then by a yard. Or you can get like a little bit more expensive, which is the Kona cotton. And you can search for Kona cotton on the internet as well. There's lots of people who sell Kona cotton. It's super popular, beautiful colors, really lovely to stitch on, but it's more like $12.99 if I remember correctly per yard. Again, I think it's like 40 or 60 like long, and then however wide it is, or maybe it's wide and long, who knows. But yeah, totally lovely to stitch on. Both of them are. So if you want something a little bit cheaper, you can go for just a plain quilting cotton like that, or you can look up specifically Kona cotton. It's Kona. And you can buy that, again, as little or as much as you want. Just remember, you need to make sure that it is wide enough for your 8-inch hoop. So don't get kind of 10 centimeters and then say, oh, I didn't get it wide enough, because the 10 centimeters is like not very wide at all. It's not going to fit your hoop in. So keep that in mind when you're ordering. So let's just have a little look here. We've got two different kinds of linen, and you can see how it looks on the hoops. So we've got the red color here. I'm on my tippy toes right now. The red color here, very, very open versus the regular cotton here. And then we have this kind of gray color. If you look through to the back, linen tends to have these kind of like lines through it as well. It makes it a little bit more rustic looking. Yeah. But it just gives a completely different look, I feel, than regular cotton. So there's no right or wrong. If you're really, really skint and you're like, I do not have $5 to be spending or £5 to be spending on a whole meter of fabric, Tori. What are you talking about? That's completely fine. Go into your linen closet and see if you've got any like plain flat sheets. See if you've got like a men's 100% cotton dress shirt. We're looking for no stretch. So we don't want this to stretch. What happens when you stretch it is that we're going to stretch the fabric into that hoop, and then you're going to stitch on that. So all the stitches are going to be nice and tight. And then what happens is when you take that fabric out of the hoop, the fabric is going to shrink back to how it normally was, which means that your nice and tight stitches are going to shrink as well, and they're going to hump up. So they're not going to be as tight. So we do not want stretchy fabric. We only want just regular 100% cotton, no stretch. Okay? So if you do anything, set yourself up to win by getting non-stretch fabric. Yeah, and you only need about this much around the outside edge. So that's kind of how much I keep. So let's just cut some, and I'll put some in the hoop for you, and then we'll do a little bit of tracing, and then we'll be finished. And then it'll probably be bath time. Kids are relentless, aren't they? Just every night, the same thing. Demanding to be fed. Having a bath. It's like, give it a break, child. Didn't I do this yesterday for you? Okay. Oh, man. Okay. What you're going to do is take your fabric like this. This is no scientific way, okay? Obviously, if you're going to make it into a banner or a pillowcase or something like that, you would, like, actually measure how much you need. But we're not going to do that because I know it's going to go into this round hoop. So what I'm going to do is put my 8-inch hoop right on top of my fabric like this. Do not use your embroidery scissors to cut on the fabric, okay? Go away. Use our fabric scissors. And all I want is just about that much around the entire thing. Now, some people like to stitch on 2 pieces of fabric. I tried that because I was like, oh, people say it's so nice. And I hate it. I absolutely do not like it. That's completely up to you. And if you would like to try that, then you can. Some people say that it helps your fabric to stay a little bit more tight in the hoop. Some people say that it makes your fabric a little bit less see-through. But honestly, when it's on the wall, you can't really tell. So that's my 2 cents anyways. But as with all things, if it works for you, then do it that way. Like, I'm not telling you you're wrong. You know what I mean? If you like it, do it. Don't let anyone say you shouldn't. Go away. Like, come on, man. Okay, so we're going to loosen our hoop up. I'm not ironing this either, by the way, because it's going to become nice and tight in just a minute. Okay, we're going to put one behind and one in front like this. Put the other one on top. And if you look at your fabric weave, there's a, some of it goes up and down and some of it goes side to side. So what I like to do is keep the up and down right in the middle like this and the side to side from left to right like this. So we don't want it to be on an angle where you have it on a cross like that. So if you look really closely here, do you see how the fibers go up and down in line with the top and then side to side? Okay. And what we're going to do is just kind of pop that in and tighten it about halfway. And you can see it's starting to kind of like puff up a little bit. And all we're going to do is just tighten that up all the way around. So you're just pulling just a little bit, and you can see how it starts to get nice and tight here, and here it's loose. Yeah. Again, if you've got any questions, just let me know. Are people having questions and they're going to this stupid question box now? No questions. Okay, good. Oh, that's what happened last time. And I was like, are you joking me? People had so many questions. And I was just here, just chatting away, like oblivious. Like what? Okay. And all you're going to do is keep making that tight. So we're going to tighten up the top like this. And you're going to pull your fabric. I like to put it against my belly like that and really pull it down. You can totally see where I'm going to have to take this out and make it bind to that area or get a different hoop, which is fine. Okay, and what we're looking for is for this here to be completely tight, like a drum, so like smooth, so no wrinkles or anything like that. And when you tap it, it should sound like a drum. So that's what we're looking for. I like to give it one more tug at the top just because I want it to be really nice and tight. Okay, let's quickly talk about all the different ways that you can transfer your image onto your fabric, because that's the thing that I get asked probably the most is, how do I get it on there? What do I do? I'm so confused. So the first way is you cut it out, and I do have a cutout version somewhere. I just had it. Did it fall down? No, it did. What a mess. She's a mess. She's a mess. Okay, so the first way, is you're going to take your cut out circle like this. I like to cut on the line or a little bit in because you can trim off a little bit as well. And what you're going to do is put it where you want it and then put it directly behind. So I'm going to have to trim it just a very little bit because you can see it's not fitting flat. So let's just trim this down a very small amount. Just where it's poking out a little bit. And this will have no impact on the actual pattern at all. So don't worry. Hi, Ruth. Okay, put it how you want it. And then this is my favorite little trick, is using blue tack. So it's just regular blue tack that you can get anywhere. And I just like to stick a little bit on your paper and then smash that up into the wood a little bit. And I like to put three of them on there so that I'm sure it comes in other colors as well. Someone sent me a message the other day and said, can I use white tack? Is that the same? I'm like, any color you want, babe. Doesn't matter. So what you get is this. You've got your paper in the back like that. And now you can use whatever method that you want to. I just put my fingers fanned out like this and start tracing. And you can move your fingers all the way around to where you see fit. Another way to do it, if you are not interested in that way, or you don't have, well, you need a printer for this way too. So, but sometimes people like these ways better, okay? Especially if you're not really good at tracing with just your one hand. This way is an alternative. So the other way is you can tape this down on your table. I recommend taping it because if it moves around and you lose your place, then you're gonna get frustrated. And we are trying to minimize that, yeah? So what you're going to do is tape this down, find the top, put it at the top, put it right on the table like that. And you can draw right on your table and trace the entire thing. Now, the downside of this is I like stitching like this. If I'm not using my hoop stand, then this is how I hold my hoop. So I put my fingers on the inside edge here and my thumb over on the top. And I kind of use the padding of my thumb here to hold my hoop. Now, if I have my pattern on the inside, I don't actually have that ledge I can put my fingers on. So I would take this fabric out of the hoop, flip it over, and then re-hoop it so that the image is on the front. So that's the only thing with this way. The other way you can do it is to do the exact same thing on the table, but hang this on a window. So hang this on the window, like tape it on a window. And then if you can see through the light through the fabric, you can see it so much easier. Now, that's the way you can do it if you've got a printer. If you haven't got a printer, but you've got a computer screen, an iPad screen, I've got a solution for you. So what you can do is take your pattern on your iPad or your computer. When I started embroidery, I'm not gonna lie, kind of cringy, but this is what I did for every single commission that I got is I took my computer screen, because I didn't even have an iPad. I drew them all by hand. I took my computer screen and turned the brightness up and traced them from my computer screen when I was learning how to stitch. If I bought any like patterns from other people, or if I made something on like Word, if I wanted to like trace the lettering on Word, I didn't have a printer, so I would type out what I wanted, and yeah, and I would trace it. You're very quiet, Tori. Not sure if it's just my phone. Oh, I hope it's not. I hope it's just your phone. Let's see. I'll check with the replay and see if I can do anything about that when I upload it onto YouTube. But the way that you can do this is you're going to have to flip your fabric again. But what you can do is take your iPad or your computer screen, turn the brightness all the way up, and you can put this right here. You might have to zoom in and out and trace it from there. So you do not need can you tell? If you go into a dark room, it's like super bright. But yeah, so you do not need a printer if you do not want to go and try and find some place to print. Do you know what I mean? You can do it straight from your iPad or your computer screen. Obviously, I mean, I've done it on mine like a million times. But do it lightly. Don't push so hard. Do you know what I mean? Oh, there's David. He's probably checking if I'm finished yet. I am almost done, actually. So yeah, have we got any questions so far? That's pretty much it. I'm not going to trace the whole thing because, like I said, I've got a little gap here. And the way I can tell is because if you go around the edge like this is right where I said, you see how it started to puff up there? And my finger kind of goes down. There's a gap there. So I'm not going to actually stitch with this one. I will, and here as well, actually. See? So I'll actually tape this or just use a different one. So yeah, that's it for me. That's all for me. I will go live again, probably maybe Sunday. Tomorrow we're quite busy. But probably Sunday or maybe tomorrow morning. I don't know. Depends. I think David wants to watch the rugby. And we'll talk about watercoloring. If you would like to watercolor the top, or if you'd like to applique the top, or if you'd like to watercolor the bottom or applique the bottom. So those are kind of the two ideas that I've got. Okay. So if there's no questions, obviously if you've got one later, then just DM me. I'm happy to answer any questions at all. A lot of this information is in the actual pattern as well. It's not as in-depth as it is in the prep video because I feel like having to explain it all would just take ages and be very long, and you don't want to read all that. So yeah, I kind of just like go over it a little bit more in depth in the video. The other thing that I didn't talk about is optional tools. That one is the blue tack, obviously, because I've just used it and I've shown you how to use it. The other one is tweezers. These are not going to be the tweezers that you use to like pull hairs out of your eyebrows or your chin, okay? Get new ones. But they're really, really great for pulling little threads out if you decide that you hate this color and you'd like to remove it. So what you can do is snip it, or you can use one of these. Be very careful with this. I've had many times where I've went to take my thread out and actually done the fabric as well. So please be very careful with this. These are usually in the quilting section. And they take out stitches. But yeah, those are the optional ones that I would say. These are here really great though, because sometimes you get these tiny little stitches that you just can't get out, like these ones, like this one right here. And you just need those little tweezers to like grab them out of there. Super, super useful. But I'm pretty sure that's it. I don't want to keep going on and on and on if you haven't got questions, but please know that my inbox is open. So if you need anything at all, just DM me. There's no stupid questions. On the very first video on the Monday, I'll show you how to thread your needle. I'll show you how to tie a knot 2 ways and separate threads. So that's normally what we go through the first one, and the first day is normally quite easy. So there's no pressure or anything like that, but you do have to have everything prepped for the first day. So we are not going to do anything else except stitch on the first day. So I'm not going to show you again how to transfer your pattern or anything like that. You should have your pattern on your fabric ready to stitch on Monday the 11th. Okay? It's not going to be a long day. It's just going to be a little bit, just to kick it off with something simple and get your confidence up. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We've already talked about like just try your best, and for some of you it's your first time. It's meant to be happy. It's meant to be enjoyable. So if you find yourself stressing out and like, oh, I have to finish this before tomorrow because she's going to do the next video tomorrow and I haven't finished it, and oh my gosh, I'm going to be so behind. No, stop. Like, check yourself. Have you guys seen that episode of Below Deck when she's like, you need to check yourself? It cracks me up every time, but it's so true. Like, just stop, because it's not meant to be stressful. It's meant to be a nice little bit of time that we get to stitch together, or you can stitch in the evening, maybe when your baby's sleeping, or maybe in the morning when you wake up and you think, you know what, I just need a minute to have my coffee before I start my day. Or maybe it's your lunch break and you're like, I hate everything, but I just want to do 20 minutes of stitching to get some life back. All of those scenarios are okay. And you do not have to finish Mondays stitching on Monday. You can finish Monday stitching on Friday, or a week from then, or 3 weeks from then. It doesn't matter. So if you find yourself getting stressed, stop, take a breath. It's not that serious. Put it down, walk away. Because it's like doing the opposite, you know, of what we're supposed to be doing here. And that's enjoying each other, enjoying our stitching, having a good time. So if you ever find yourself not having a good time, just stop. So I'm going to go. That's the Mr. Whippy outside my house. That's very tempting. I'm going to go. I hope you guys have a lovely, lovely weekend, and I will see you back here either tomorrow or Sunday, and I'll talk about painting and applique, just in case you wanted to do that. You don't have to do that. So if you already feel like I'm stressed out, well, painting, I don't have watercolors, then don't do that part. That's completely fine. Just get your white fabric and we'll sort you out, okay? You don't have to do it. It's just if you feel like you want to jazz it up, or possibly you're like, this looks a little bit easy for me. I feel like I could do more. And you know who you are. You know, if you've done a stitch along before and you're like, I feel like I'm going to know some of these stitches. What else can I do? Add some watercolor, add some fabric. Maybe you can think about filling in the whole bottom or filling in the tub. It's going to be good. So enjoy your weekend, and I'll speak with you guys for the next video. Okay? Bye. Bye, 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 bye.